Good morning, you're watching Morning at NTV. This morning we'd like to talk about depressive disorders. Yes, and I was looking at numbers. World Health Organization ranked us last year 6th. And they were saying Nigeria topped at 7 million cases. We had Ethiopia at 4.4 million cases, DRC at 2.8 million cases, Tanzania at 2.1, our neighbors Kenya here at 1.9 million cases. And they're saying that about 4.6, and the doctor will explain this to me, are depressive disorders, and 2.8% are anxiety disorders. So we need to get a difference of all of this. Joining me in studios is from Butabika Hospital, the consultant psychiatrist, Dr. Biama Brian Matamba. Good morning. Yes, you and I had a discussion yesterday, and you're saying people need to be careful how they discuss this. You can't downplay mental illness, but there's mental illness, mental health.
Yes.
So I'm assuming one is the opposite of the other.
Not exactly, but they're along the same line.
Yes.
But I think to appreciate mental illness, you need to appreciate mental health as an important component of our health.
Yes.
Because many times we focus on the physical health, and we are not so concerned about our mental health, and yet it contributes a lot to our overall well-being. So mental health, when we talk about mental health, because again, many people don't find the difference between mental health and mental illness.
Yes.
It's the same thing. But really mental illness is when your mental health has been affected in one way or the other. And mental health in this case, we are looking at a state of well-being in which one is able to function to the best of their capabilities, able to deal with daily stresses, work productively, and contribute to their community. Yes. And mental illness, on the other hand, is when, in simple terms, is when our functioning of our minds has been affected, and our minds usually are responsible for our thoughts, our feelings, our behavior. And that's why when there's a disturbance in those areas, that's what is recognized as a mental illness. But like I said, also importantly, they are along the same line.
Yes.
So all of us go through some mental health problems in a way, and most of the times it's what is described as stress.
We throw that word around a lot. I don't know
Yes.
if we understand what it actually means.
Yeah, I'm not so sure whether we understand what it means, but stress really means the body's response to a difficult situation.
Yes.
And it comes both with bodily complaints and also psychological complaints, let me put that.
Okay.
And so when you're faced with difficult situations, the body reacts in that way, and that's when someone realizes that, yes, I am troubled, I am stressed. So that's how ordinarily someone would describe.
So stress means I can't cope.
Yes, in a way.
With whatever situation,
yes,
whatever is on my plate, I can't handle it, I can't cope. You know, because I was saying to you that, for example, I'm up 4 a.m. and max till 10 p.m., which my mind is alert for a good that many hours. And sometimes I either can't switch off or I'm switching off too much. And so I know many people who say they have insomnia, they can't sleep. Or someone says, I've had a long day, my body is tired. Or someone says, I have so much on my plate today, but I don't have, that push inside me to go. I need to know when it is stress, when it moves into, it's starting to be bad, I'm now depressed. What are the phases, if I can call it that?
Yes, the phases. Yeah, important questions that we need to clarify. Yes, when I talked about mental health, I said part of realizing that you're in good mental health is the ability to deal with stress. Yes. So we should be able to realize that this is a stressful circumstance, and then we put in place mechanisms to deal with the stress. Now, once you're going through a stressful situation, and then you're struggling to cope with it, and progressively your ability to function, to do the things that you ordinarily would do is also affected, then depression is one of those mental health problems that can arise.
Yes.
And I'm saying one of the mental health problems because there are other mental health problems that can arise, and there are also other physical health problems that can arise. Because stress, if not managed, can result into a lot of health problems. But today, like you asked, we're focusing on
depression. Yes.
So with depression, there are characteristic symptoms that make you realize that this is actually depression. And because when you're stressed, like you said, your sleeping pattern, your eating habits, your body energy, your emotional balance is affected. But then, you know, you can go through a stressful situation, you put in place mechanism, maybe you get a day off and you feel you're balanced again. But if progressively you're not sleeping well, your eating is different from the usual, either you're eating less or eating more, and even for the sleeping, you can start sleeping more than the usual, or you're feeling tired all the time. And then importantly for depression, because it's an emotional illness, if you're persistently sad or low emotionally, and also lose interest in the things that you usually derive pleasure from, whether it is your work, whether it is your hobbies, and alongside that, other symptoms keep coming in. You, like we said, you always feel tired. You then start having problems with your concentration.
Yeah, you know, when you were actually mentioning that, just to note, we're talking about depression, and we know when it comes to mental illness, it's not the only one that can actually affect you, but we've chosen today to deal with depression, and of course there are many others during the time of the year. We'll actually go and deal with them. But I need to find out things like, shouldn't we all be able to deal with stress? I think there's a certain level to which we can deal with stress, and so if an average human being can handle stress to a certain level, when do you know that it's too much? Or are the levels different for every single person? And then there's also questions where I know Dr. Kalunji there on ground actually said that it's even in the DNA that, you know, it can actually come from you to your child, from your great-grandmother. Our great-grandmothers did not even know that they were depressed, so how am I going to know that it's actually in the family? How am I going to know that it runs in my DNA? And also things like, Dr. Alex actually clarified that if you had interest in certain things and you've now lost interest in certain things, your mood has changed. I know certain things that we use, mood swings. We tend to say mood swings a lot. I have mood swings. Today I'm happy, tomorrow I'm not happy. And I think actually, doctor, to be honest, mood swings are always attached to us women. Are we the only ones who go through mood swings?
Not really. I think I'll come back to, because I need to clarify this.
Yes, please.
But mood swings can happen to anybody. And yes, they attach women because during the menstrual cycle kind of affects you emotionally. And sometimes that's when it usually happens. But not. But
that's regarded normal.
Yes, that should be normal. But in the case of depression, like I was explaining, in the symptoms that I talked about, that it's mostly an emotional illness, feeling sad, and in as well as someone is feeling sad, they might also be irritable. They're easily annoyed and they're always snapping away, and that's where the mood swings can come in.
Yes.
And then I talked about the loss of interest. Now, it's important to know that these symptoms develop progressively. And like we have talked about, the low energy, the disturbances in sleep and appetite, disturbances in concentration, indecisiveness, and then common in our setting is you can get unexplained physical complaints. You know, headaches that don't go away, backaches that don't go away, which you've treated for, you know, for some time now. They don't seem to be responding to this malaria, which cannot go away, this typhoid or whatever else. And then eventually one starts becoming withdrawn and isolating themselves and having feelings of despair, hopelessness, where they feel maybe they are not a useful person, they are not a worthwhile person, they don't add value, they prefer that maybe they might think that they are a burden to others, and so they withdraw. And they really put a lot of, like, blame themselves for things that they shouldn't even blame themselves. Let
me ask you, doctor, there are times I have said to myself, I like my space.
Yes.
You know, and I said, I like being alone. Sometimes I just like to spend time, I don't like crowds, maybe. If there are too many people, I'd rather take the corner. Should I be worried?
No, if it persists. The issue is if it persists. Like I'm saying, that's why I'm saying these symptoms develop over time.
Okay.
And typically, it's a period of at least 2 weeks when you're having these symptoms that are progressively.
Oh, okay.
And that's when you know that you're no longer dealing with stress. You're not dealing with a common stressful situation. Because that's why I talked about mental health problems that we all go through. And that is really stressful situations that we're able to deal with. But if it progresses and it's more than 2 weeks, and then importantly, if it affects your ability to to function in important areas, to do your work, whether in the home or at your workplace, at school, or in other important areas of functioning. And then we are now looking at what we call depression. And like just to conclude, I mean, eventually that's when someone, after all these symptoms are developing, they get to a point where they think maybe death might be the solution. So they start thinking about death, and then they start contemplating, maybe if I went away, it would be better for everybody, or I should stop suffering, and then that's when they become suicidal. And so it is important to recognize that depression, one, it is a common mental health problem, very common, more common than many people are aware of, and that's why it is important that we are talking about it today, because taking like 10 people, I mean, the evidence shows that up to 3 to 4 of every 10 person might have depression at any one time. At different levels, not the severe form,
yes,
but at different levels. But it is important to recognize even the milder forms.
Because it eventually grows. It can grow.
If it's not treated, yes. So it is a common mental health problem and causes a lot of dysfunction at individual, family, or community level.
Yeah, so I'm curious to know that. First of all, let's talk about being prone to it. Age groups, gender, and also it runs in the family?
Yes, depression, like, and this is where we talk about more like, the risk factors.
Yes.
What makes you likely to get depression? Though before I get there, I need also to make sure that I say that depression can affect anybody.
I was about to say, is there a group of people who is immune?
No.
They're immune to this, they'll never get depressed, never have bouts of depression or stress?
No. For as long as you have a mind, you'll get depression.
You can
get depression.
Okay.
However, there are certain situations which put you at risk.
Yes.
And starting with the individual, when your, let me say, your genetic makeup, and usually it's evidenced by having had people who have had depression in the family, like it has a hereditary component, like many other health and other mental health and physical health problems. Someone who has had it in the family is more at risk than somebody that has not had it. Though it does not necessarily mean that you'll have it.
Yeah.
Because if you live, if you're aware of it and live a life that kind of prevents it, then then that is good. When you're at risk genetically, let me say, and then other individual factors, for example, your personality. There are people who really find it very difficult to talk, to go out. They're really introverts, and yes, they might be at risk. Okay. Not necessarily, because like I said, if you put in place mechanisms, because it's not one factor that puts you at risk of depression. It's a combination of individual factors, which I'm talking about, and other social factors.
Yes.
And now the social factors, there might be those that have affected you individually right from childhood. Adversities, traumas, abuses.
Even in schools, bullying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Bullying and other situations that can happen at school or at home. And then a lot of the factors that I think we had from individuals mentioning earlier on, we can say poverty or difficulties socio-economically, relationship problems, workplace problems, loss, loss of a loved one.
Yeah.
So the combination of individual and
society,
environmental factors make it likely are the ones which contribute to one having getting depression.
We don't discuss so much about men being depressed because we assume depression is emotional more than it is physical, and we assume men are not supposed to show emotional stress. And I know there was a headline that actually said that especially more men around Christmas tend to get stressed. I don't know if it's because they have to provide and there's no money, but do you notice any differences in genders when you're actually treating for this?
No, an important question. Men are emotional. It's just that they express their emotion differently.
Okay.
Yeah.
So not that they don't express it at all, doctor.
Yes. So we
you just do it differently.
Yes, we don't judge emotions from
the outlook.
Perspective.
Okay.
So it is important to know that men show emotion, and like I said, feeling sad is something that maybe a female would identify more with.
Yes.
Whereas a man feeling sad might be difficult to express.
So I can cry easily, whereas a man can't cry
yes.
easily.
So irritability then comes in. Someone is, you see someone is not really themselves, and maybe it's the way they are going to express themselves that is different, and that you need to recognize.
Yeah.
So depression can occur to anybody, irrespective of gender and irrespective of age. Right from children to the old age, depression can affect anybody. So it is also important to keep that in mind. Okay.
So I was explaining to you that I've actually gone through bouts, well, a big bout of depression. But when I explained it, you said it was actually the same. It's just at different phases. And you're saying the worst could be suicidal thoughts and then eventually suicide or death. And when we talked about, you asked me, did you get treatment?
Yep.
What would be the treatment? So let's say someone is depressed, they're stressed for the last couple of weeks, they've gotten a promotion maybe, or there's some risk factors that have pushed them. I'm told they're called triggers. Triggers, is it? And something has happened in their life and they're feeling stressed and they're not coping. That's not cause for alarm to get the same treatment someone with suicidal thoughts would be getting. So what sort of treatment for what phases of depression?
So the important thing is to recognize whether this is depression for anybody. And if you recognize that it is depression, then it is important to seek appropriate treatment. So what is appropriate treatment? When we are treating depression as an emotional illness or as a mood illness, it's usually called a mood illness or mood disorder.
Illness, okay.
Yes. Then treatment usually involves talking treatment from a talking specialist.
Okay.
That is a counselor, and the more advanced forms, a psychologist, because then that is a major component of the treatment. And in some cases, we also use medication, which is antidepressant treatment. And it is important that you seek the appropriate care, because over time, research has shown that there is what we call evidence-based care, that there are treatments which work and those which might not work.
Okay.
And why I emphasize that is because when one is experiencing depression, they might seek to cope in different ways. They might look to
music.
Yes, well, music might be therapeutic, but it might not treat the depression.
Really?
It might, yeah, because depression is an illness, and it has to be treated in its own right. It might make you feel better for some time, but it's not taking away the illness.
Okay.
Yes.
So listening to my soothing music helps me for now.
Alongside, if you're doing it alongside proper treatment.
Yes.
Because it's, and I'll use that analogy later, it's important that you get the actual treatment and not get temporary, what eventually a temporary solution, and sometimes problematic, like listening to music. Others take to using alcohol because they get a temporary high, or substances of abuse. They get a temporary high, then they feel better. Then they say, this has made me feel better. But then because of the nature of the substances, that wears off very quickly. Yes. Eventually you go back, and these are addictive. So
even my cup of coffee that I think is helping me cope.
Yes, it's causing you another. Causing you another problem. You're supposed to take coffee not to cope, but because you really you just want to take coffee. So the negative coping strategies. And why I say this is, it's important that all of us are able to recognize depression. Just like if you developed a headache, fever, you'd start thinking, maybe I have malaria or something. So you'd say, let me go to the hospital. And then that's where we want individuals to also be able to recognize depression, considering it's common, such that you say, if I am not sleeping, I'm not eating, I'm feeling so bad, this has gone on, maybe I have depression.
Yes.
But just like other mental health problems, what prevents people from doing that is the stigma. How do I go and say, I am depressed?
Dr. Brian, when you say treatment for depression, because I have been depressed before, I assume you're going to lock me somewhere, injections. That's the mentality. And I'll be honest, I don't think I'm alone in this. So as much as I'd think of seeking treatment, I would assume the treatment is going to be severe or harsh, or I may not understand what it is. So that alone might prevent me from actually accepting or coming to terms with it.
Yes. Yes, and that's why it is important that we always clarify. There's a lot of myths and misinformation around mental illness. And like I said, for depression, if you recognize it, you can actually walk into a facility where you're sure to get appropriate treatment. And depending on your level of of treatment. We don't
So
lock up
if
people.
I walk into Butabika today, I can talk to a therapist.
Yes, you can talk to a
Not
doctor, a
necessarily
therapist.
go through what we all assume happens.
I don't know what people assume,
Yeah.
but anyhow, no, yes, you can actually go in. It's like walking to a hospital.
Yes.
It depends on the level of illness that you have. For the milder forms, you come in and it's important to do an assessment so that we
First.
understand where you are.
Yes.
And like I said, we can actually manage you as an outpatient depending on the level of depression that you
Yes.
have. But if it has progressed to a level where you need supervised care, it's not that we lock you up, but just like if you had severe malaria, you're admitted to hospital.
And monitored.
And monitored,
Yes.
yes, and and helped while you're in hospital.
Definitely.
I don't know why nobody ever says they lock up patients with malaria, but they lock up patients with
I know it's just, as you said, the stigma
it
around
is.
it.
I know, yes, I know you. That exactly is the stigma. So we don't lock up, but there are different levels of care depending
Yes.
on the level
of
illness
depression
that
where you
have.
are.
Yes.
Yes, and many of us, even yesterday, I think we said this and we've been tweeting about it, that call someone, talk to someone. And if you are in depression, sometimes it's not your first instinct to reach out to and say, Dr. Brian, I feel this way, can I talk to you? So what happens to that group of people who, first of all, if I've been an introvert, that's even worse. So what happens?
Yeah, it can be challenging, and I think going back to basics, because I've talked about how to access care from the mental health system.
Yes.
But remember, someone might be at home, like you said, they are alone, and that's why the emphasis should be on: am I going through depression, and what can I do about it?
Yeah.
And the idea is to try and look out for support systems. You try and look out for a friend and whom you can confide in, because again, it's difficult to share. There are certain myths about depression where people are thinking that person is weak,
Yes.
that one has no willpower, but it has nothing to do with that. So the idea is to reach out and get supports, and also try to get out there and seek help. However, because of what depression is, it makes you tend to withdraw, to push away people, and even people who would have helped you will say like, that one, that one is problematic.
You might even lash out at them instead. If
Yeah,
you
you're
try.
irritable. So the tendency is to live, let them live in your peace, yet you're really dying in your peace. So that's why it is also important for family members or friends or whoever can recognize and find a way of helping you access care. Because depression will be such that it tends to remove you away from all the supports. Yet part of the treatment is to help the supports come around you.
Okay, I want us to talk about, because I know the Ugandan government recognizes mental health as a serious public health concern, but you've talked about a support system, which is great for those. Now people are more aware, by the way. I think in Uganda we're discussing mental illness and especially depression a lot more. So sometimes if you can recognize it, you can help a friend.
Yes.
But
the proper way.
The proper way. See, that's
not go for let's go and shoot you one or give you.
But sometimes people do that.
I know,
doctor.
but that does not help someone with depression. That's what I'm saying. You should be able to help them access the proper care, not say.
So you try. Okay, so you're trying to tell me if my friend is depressed and
Yes.
getting her out of the house to go, I don't know, do an activity or run somewhere.
That would be good,
Okay.
but it needs to go alongside. They need to actually be assessed,
Okay.
and their treatment needs determined, and that should be in a health facility or a therapist place.
So instead, I'd rather take them out of the house and go to a health facility and get assessed.
Yes, but the supports continue. It helps that you continue taking them out, helping them walk, helping them connect with supports, getting out of the house, and but it's a combination of things that need to happen. Not only one thing is going to happen. That I'll see you today. We go for a walk, and that should sort out your depression.
See, the world has changed now. There's apps that are targeted just for mental wellness, and there's all sorts of things telling you eat right. And you mentioned about you're not able, your appetite is low or different. They tell you to eat right, exercise right, have this calm lifestyle. Let me tell you, doctor, I've tried those things. We're in a country where so many things are buzzing and happening that sometimes you can only maintain that calm for a certain period of time. When you say you can be treated, can you be treated to a point, doctor, where you cannot have bouts of depression, or it's gone, or is it treated to, control it or suppress it for some time?
Yes, the idea of treatment all the time, whenever we treat whatever kind of illness, is really to get you back to the level where you have no symptoms, where you can function again.
On your own?
Yes, on your own. Yes, depression can be treated at a point where it can actually, you actually have no more depression, and you're back to yourself again.
Yes.
However, it doesn't mean that you cannot be depressed again, because just like other illnesses, you can't get sick again. Yeah. For certain individuals, it might take longer for them to get to that level, so they can't be on long-term treatment. Others, yes, are always vulnerable to getting bouts of depression, but which can be managed, again, under, as long as they are accessing the right treatment.
Are there enough hospitals, facilities that actually are geared towards treating this? I know therapy, talking to someone, is there, but that's not really something, maybe I've not looked. I did not bother to go to the phase of getting a therapist. Eventually I talk to people, but that's just friends. As you said, of course, they might not know how to talk to me, but are there enough? Because maybe we don't have enough statistics to cover how bad this is in the country, but resource-wise, are we able to manage it?
Resource-wise, the way we stand now,
Yes.
we still have an under-resourced mental health system. And we don't have enough mental health specialists who would be really the best people to deal with depression.
Yes.
However, depression being a common mental health problem, with a lot of evidence that it can be treated even in the lowest health facility or at different levels, yes, we should have enough capacity to deal with depression, because it's so common that anybody who has depression should walk to the nearest health facility and be able to get some help. And I think that should be possible. Over time, as Mental Health Fraternity, as the Ministry of Health, there have been initiatives to get health workers, train them, and to levels
Is that
where
any
they can
health worker or
recognize-
particular
It
specialist?
should be any health worker.
Oh.
Yes, and I think if you look at, for example, and it's not an initiative that has happened in Uganda, but even worldwide, there's this initiative where trying to get even non-specialist health workers to be able to recognize common health problems, including some common mental health problems, whether it's depression, whether it's anxiety, whether it is alcohol and substance use problems, so that they can at least be able to provide some level of treatment, and such that only those who are really in severe forms are then referred to the specialists. So that is the approach that...
This would be great for underserved communities, because me here in Kampala, I might have access to a therapist, whereas someone in Chinoni deep down there might not even know what that is. So if they're going to a hospital for something else, then maybe the nearest point of contact is a nurse or a doctor. So so is that underway? Can you equip all of these, or are you able to?
Well, that's the vision of the ministry.
That's the vision.
And I mean, it will be progressive, because I mean, we are a low-income country, and the resource basket is minimal, and we are working towards that. And part of the initiative is also to get an enabling mental health policy, which we still think we should have in place, and also really a revised mental health law, which creates a lot of the stigma about mental health. But that's for mental health services in general. And the ministry, in line with the national health policy, mental health services are integrated within routine health care. So wherever you go, you should be able to access a mental health service. But indeed, we need to develop capacity, and importantly so, because many, like we mentioned earlier, a lot of the time when people are experiencing depression, they are not aware. So many times it's actually the health worker who should be able to tell you that, based on your symptoms, this is actually depression and this is what you need to do. And it is so common that many people who go to the health facilities, alongside the other conditions that they have, because there's also depression commonly occurs with other health problems, chronic conditions, especially like high blood pressure, diabetes, cancer, and also other mental health problems, especially the addiction problems. And so it is important that the capacity is developed in our system, such that wherever you go, there's an ability to recognize the depression and treat you for it. Yes,
as we wind up, for someone who's been watching thinking, I've understood what depression is, perhaps there are points in my life where I feel I've been stressed, I could have gotten to depression, and you've said you should be able to go to any hospital near you and access, or someone can be able to tell you that you're going through depression. But let's talk about probably, before we go into, as you wind up, probably what Butabika Hospital is able to provide, you know, what we can access. Maybe talk to someone who's saying, so how can I cope? What can I put in place to prevent this? Should I be aware of my situation, sleep more? What is it that, you know, an average Ugandan can do to probably, you know, brace themselves for this?
Yes. It all goes back about having a healthy lifestyle, looking out for your health, both your physical and your mental health. And indeed, there's a
so if I take care of my physical, doctor, I'm not taking, it's not automatic.
No, it's not automatic.
Okay.
Yes, it's good to do the physical, and some of the physical actually helps with your mental health.
Yes.
But it's not, you know, it doesn't help if you do your physical, eat right, do your exercises, and then you're having 3 hours of sleep. Or you're taking on more than you can. You're not having enough time to balance your life, enough time to rest, to de-stress, you know. So you need to develop your stress management techniques.
Okay.
Look out, ensure you have enough sleep. You're eating right, like you said, that is both for physical and mental.
Yes.
And also in terms of how you're relating to others, you know, managing that, and generally looking out for your emotional well-being, because certain things also don't help. I mean, these days a lot of people get engrossed in social media, which make you probably more isolated, break away your social contacts. So there's a way you can look out for your mental health also, as well as your physical health. And when you start looking out for your mental health, that's when you're able to appreciate that something is not wrong, is not right with me.
Yes.
You know, something.
There's a difference.
Yes, there's a difference between the way I am mentally usually and now.
Yeah.
And then you're able to take you know, appropriate action to deal with it. And maybe you take a rest and then, you know, re-energize and then proceed. So those are the basic things that if you look out for your health and you're conscious that there's both the physical and mental health, then that helps you to
as you tell us what's available at Butabika. Is this something we should do? Because I get health checkups every year. I go and say lungs fine, kidney fine, this fine. I don't think I've ever gotten an assessment of my mental health. Should that be something we add to the list?
Yes, it should be a routine assessment. It should be a routine assessment. And it's not only done at Butabika.
Okay.
Yes.
You can walk anywhere.
Yes, you
so the same place that gives me my health checkup should be able to
inquire into your mental health. And many times, do it and find out if there are any danger signs, I would put them, that are pointing towards any emotional illness or any other mental health problem, and see how to deal with it. Because like for any other illness, the earlier the intervention, the better the outcome. Definitely. Yep.
And you are a consultant with the Butabika Hospital.
Yes.
Why, I won't even ask why we are afraid of Butabika Hospital, but we talked about the stigma. But what is available now? What kind of treatments are available that are working? Of course, I know it's not just for depression. It's for so many other mental illnesses. But are we a world-class facility? Are we able to treat and put back these citizens back in society and they're rehabilitated and great?
Well, Butabika is the National Referral Mental Hospital, and we provide the whole range of mental health services, and we have the range of specialists, not in the numbers that would want to, and also not having all the resources that we wish we would have.
Yes.
However, we think we are in a position where we provide a range of effective, affordable mental health care that meets the needs of most people, who, if not everybody, who comes to Butabika.
Okay.
The challenge we face is that we are almost like the only hospital which provides these services. And what we need to do is what we need as a health system is to have other hospitals also be able to provide a certain range of mental health services.
Okay, so not expansion of Butabika, but just
No,
perhaps...
Yes, to ensure that mental health services are provided even
elsewhere.
at lower healthcare levels, because then that would allow us at Butabika to actually be able to focus more on those who need that level of specialist care.
The severe cases?
Yes, because a lot of the times with common mental health problems, you might not need specialist care, like we already talked about.
Yes.
Yeah, you can actually go, and the health worker at your nearby health facility should be able to provide that. Yes, but in Butabika, we are doing the best that we can.
So you're receiving all the cases, and you're saying it would be better if at all the other levels they can assist with some cases.
Yeah. And it would be for the benefit of the people.
Of the people as access.
Yeah, exactly. Access, affordability.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let me ask you as wind up. I can walk into Butabika and say, what is it, self-diagnosis? When you can say, I am not well,
yeah,
let me
that's
go
what we
into
want to, like, if you feel you think you have depression, you walk into Butabika.
Because we're assuming most people now, I get recommended to go, versus I should be able to take myself there and say, I am not well.
People might be recommended, and it's mostly because of the lack of awareness about mental health problems. So many people, yes, are referred, but increasingly people actually walk in. And remember that Butabika, the outpatient department provides general health services. So people walk in for malaria, for other infectious diseases, for maternal child health, and they walk in and get these services. And that's how, and other people also walk in for mental health problems. But yes, there are those who come in with severe mental health problems who have been referred.
Okay, great. So if you can look at your life now and tell that there are sudden stresses that are unusual, your life, you said over 2 weeks. If you monitor yourself 2 weeks at least, by the third week and you see no change, you should be worried. But what I noted, and I think we should take on, is that every other time that when you go for your health checkups, just ask the doctor to also assess your mental health.
So in as much as depression, yes, is really 2 weeks is when we really start thinking this is depression. But there might be other health problems, even other mental health problems, which don't take 2 weeks.
Yes.
And for as long as you feel unwell, just know that it might be a physical or mental health problem. And so you can walk to the health facility. Okay,
so be aware that sometimes what is affecting you is not just physical, it can also be mental. So make it a point to walk into any of the hospitals and get your, your mental health assessed. It's for your own benefit. It's not saying that being assessed means you are not well. No. And it doesn't mean that if you're stressed, you're very unwell or you're depressed. It goes through phases. So if you can manage it, if you can cope, even better. If you feel you can't cope, don't put the stigma around it where you feel like people will judge you, you'll be ashamed in society. Seek help, because if you seek help, as you said earlier, at the right time, it actually helps you from getting to that severe depression. It's Morning at NTV.
Are you